welcome my panel tonight, Pastor Hank Kunneman, Pastor Cheyon, Mark Meckler, and our good friend Eric Stakelbeck. Eric, I want to start with you before I go to Secretary Pete Hegseth. How does this change the vernacular going forward with such bombing the Houthis? I mean, this is a big, bold move.
Yeah, and Gene, long overdue. I think first and foremost, I think the latter part of Mike's great report, Iran holding the head of the snake accountable. Remember, Gene, the Houthis in Yemen, that's just one tentacle of the larger Iranian octopus that has enveloped the entire region, includes Hamas and Hezbollah, these various militia groups in Iraq. But this is big because the Houthis, as Secretary Rubio said, they were not only impacting Israel and bombarding Israel with missiles and drones, they were directly impacting the United States. Some 70%, Gene, in the past 16 months or so of global shipping, they couldn't use the Red Sea. Right. That's the Houthis' home base. They had to divert just a complete roundabout way and go across beneath Africa. It was costing America money, the world money. It was having a profound effect on global shipping and trade. And again, the Houthis were directly attacking U.S. vessels. Something had to be done. It was time for peace through strength to return. That's exactly what President Trump is doing. And Gene, real quick, to give you an idea of who we're dealing with in the Houthis, this Iran-backed terror group, this is their official slogan. And listen to this: Allah is the greatest, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, and victory for Islam. Other than that, Gene, I'm sure they are perfectly reasonable or not. I think the Houthis are in deep trouble right now.
I think so too. Thank you for that. And you're quoting there. That's not somebody's opinion. That's exactly what it says. Let me go to Mark Meckler. Mark, Convention of States. Tell me, how does this affect the political climate there in D.C.?
I think this is a really important move, and it's an important move economically. You know, the biggest risk to the Trump administration is that inflation continues or grows, that the economy cools. That could undermine the entire agenda. And I've seen folks on the left saying, well, you know, very little shipping goes through there compared to the entire world trade. It's about 10% of the world shipping heads through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, but it affects about 0.6% of the United States economy in prices. And so what that means is you right now have an inflation rate about 2.8%. Target inflation for the Fed is roughly 2%. This would take us back down to target inflation rate, meaning that they've tamed the inflation beast. Right. This is a very important economic maneuver.
And that's the point that most mainstream media is kind of eliminating. They're skipping past it. Well, let's go to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. What he had to say about what's going on. Watch.
Well, it all went down because an era of peace through strength is back. Just like in his first term, President Trump had to deal with the weakness of President Obama and get rid of ISIS, and he did it more quickly than anybody else. We're sitting on 4 years of deferred maintenance from Joe Biden, where in particular, when you talk about the Houthis, they were allowed for over 100 times to shoot at U.S. Ships, to shoot at commercial shipping. 4 months ago, when we sent a ship through, it was shot at 17 times. Ships haven't been able to go through for over a year without being shot at. Freedom of navigation is basic. It's a core national interest. And President Trump has said, we will restore that, and we will be unrelenting. I want to be very clear. This campaign is about freedom of navigation and restoring deterrence. The minute the Houthis say, we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting. We got the reports last night, Maria. The Houthi capital felt like an earthquake. Dozens and dozens of precision-heavy munitions dropping precisely on the targets that we wanted to hit, sending a very clear message. And the message is clear to Iran as well. And the president said it in his truth. Your support of the Houthis needs to end immediately. We will hold you accountable as the sponsor of this proxy. And I echo his statement. We will not be nice about it. This is not the Biden administration. The message is clear. We will come after the Houthis until they stop shooting at our ships, and the Iranians better stay out of it.
All right, Pastor Hank Kunneman, you heard this. This is a very different Secretary of Defense than what we've seen the last 4.5 years. And America is back. I think I can hear all the guys across America going, yeah, let's see it. You know, that's this is a different America. It's a different administration. What do you see happening here?
Well, first and foremost, I think we have to approach it from two perspectives. Number one, this is a spiritual battle that's been around against ancient spirits, the prince of Persia. And even in the book of Daniel, Michael the archangel had to come and reveal to Daniel that his prayer and fasting affected that region and this spirit, the prince of Persia. And I think once again, the hand of God, the Spirit of the Lord is dealing with that spirit to open it up, but also to restrain it so that it doesn't bring harshness to the innocent people. I also think the natural perspective, to your point, Gene, is look, we've been looking at strong leadership. We've been expecting it over the last few years. We didn't see it. And at the point of the beginning of this program, we talked about patty caking. Well, that's what the former administration did. They patty cake. Now we've got strength. But here's what we have to remember. This terrorist organization, as well as Hamas, they are the aggressors. And you can't just back away and do nothing. You have to push back. And lastly, I want to say this, a play on words again, Gene. You've been with me 4.5 years. I looked at that word. I don't even know how to pronounce it, Houthi. And the first thing that popped off of me, I don't know if it was the Spirit of the Lord, was the word O-U-T. And I think that organization is about to be out. They're in trouble. And it's going to send a strong message to these terrorist organizations. America, Donald Trump, and we the people, we aren't playing anymore. No, we're not. All right, Pastor Jay, I want you to watch this. This is Secretary of State Rubio talks about he's doing the world a favor. Watch.
We're not going to have these guys, these people with weapons able to tell us where our ships can go, where the ships of all the world can go, by the way. It's not just the U.S. We're doing the world a favor. Yeah. We're doing the entire world a favor by getting rid of these guys and their ability to strike global shipping. That's the mission here, and it will continue until that's carried out. That never happened before. The Biden administration didn't do that. All the Biden administration would do is they would respond to an attack. These guys would launch one rocket, we'd hit the rocket launcher. That's it. This is an effort to take away their ability to control global shipping in that part of the world. That's just not going to happen anymore. And it could. So this will continue until that's finished.
It's a very different America, Pastor Jay. What do you think? You see this? Is it really doing the world a favor?
Absolutely. I mean, Reformation is about righteousness and justice, which is the foundation of God's throne. And in Psalm 89:14, he's doing what's right for the nations. I feel like he's a reformer. And I also believe the devil's overplaying his hand, because I believe that we're going to see Iran come down. I believe there's going to be peace in the Middle East. And again, it's like the spirit of stupid upon Iran, because they're inviting and provoking righteous response from President Trump and from the United States, and really the international community, because Europe's being impacted by this trade shortage and stoppage. So I believe what's going to happen is that we're going to see peace in the Middle East through all this. It doesn't make sense, but I really do believe that God's called him to be a peacemaker and to bring prosperity. It's a golden age. And you can't have a golden age without peace and prosperity coming to the Middle East.
No, without a doubt. Okay, let me go back to Eric Stakelbeck. Eric, there was in some of those reports we played earlier, there was the comment there of how many times our ships have been hit trying to go through those waters. This is information that until very recently, that I believe the American people didn't even know. I hadn't even heard how many times, hundreds of times they've been hit. Usually you fire back with something like this, but they didn't have the authority to do so. This changes everything in that region, don't you think, or am I missing it?
No, Gene, you are not overstating it. Something to remember here. Number one of his first acts as president, Joe Biden, in January 2021. I mean, Gene, this may have been actually, I think, his first foreign policy act. He removed the Houthis from the U.S. designated terrorist list. And what did that do? All it did was embolden the Houthis. Right. They said, wow, this guy's soft. We'll strike more, and then we'll strike some more. And they kept doing it. They intensified it, Gene, after the October 7th massacre. And Joe Biden's administration said again and again, look, we are in the Red Sea purely as a defensive measure. Right. We'll only strike if we're struck first. Well, those days are gone. And President Trump is saying, look, we need to go on the offensive against these terrorists. We don't need American boots on the ground. We can do what needs to be done through airstrikes, through naval strikes. And the administration, Trump administration, is doing exactly that. And by the way, Houthi leaders right now are in hiding. And we talk about cutting the head off the snake, the Iranian regime ultimately, but the head of the Houthis in the meantime is in very serious trouble.
Without a doubt. Without it. Mark, you see this, and as we're going to let's just wrap up this little segment, but what does this do to the world stage? People are watching. Iran, of course, is involved, but Russia's watching, China's watching. All of these countries that have something to gain are seeing how Trump's responding. What does that do to the international stage?
I think it's a complete reset for the international stage. Pete Hegseth said it best, peace through strength. And I think America is back flexing its muscles and saying we're not going to tolerate poor behavior around the world, behavior that upsets the order of things, behavior that upsets trade, behavior that is terrorist in nature. We're just not going to tolerate it from anybody. I think this is especially important in the South China Sea in regard to China. China's been very territorially aggressive there. It's scaring a bunch of our allies. It's upsetting shipping lanes there. And I think this sends a strong message to China.
Well, I'm sure it does. I think you're absolutely right. All right, let's move on. We got so much stuff to get to. Venezuelan gangs were deported. This is just, the news keeps getting better. There's some B-roll here we're going to roll. The Tren de Agua being deported. I'm sure if you've paid attention to the news at all, they've been deported. Trump deported this group to El Salvador. When you see this, Che, all of these guys are being taken off. This is like the real Con Air. They're being taken off into El Salvador. They're not playing. What does this say to you? I mean, you talked about this being a spiritual war as well as what we're seeing here in America on the turf war, but this is a spiritual war like we haven't seen before. I mean, look at the way they're handling these guys.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this because we're seeing El Salvador aligned with the United States as Rubio went to El Salvador with a Christian president, and they agreed to take the gang members. Interesting enough, they're from Venezuela, Guatemala, they're from different nations, but they're going to take them back because if you send them back to Venezuela, they'll be released again and you'll have the same mess. And so what Trump, again, and Rubio are brilliant about this because we are now bringing an end to this open borders of criminals, gang members coming in, sex traffickers, the cartel. And so I feel that this is a new day, even for our international relationship with Latin America.
I think you're right. But what did not go without a little bit of drama in typical Trump presidency fashion. We had U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, I don't know what you say, an Obama appointee, just halted the deportation after Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act. He also reportedly ordered planes that were already in the air, deporting illegals to turn back to the U.S. Mark Meckler, this is, which side is he on?
Well, he's on the side of the left, and the left in the United States of America is always fascist. They're always anti-American. That's the side he's on. He has no legal leg to stand on here. He's just an activist judge in a district far away from Washington, D.C., trying to control the whole country. This is really important. We have to be very careful about this. If every district judge in the country can control the president, then they actually are the president. And I think this is going to make its way to the Supreme Court eventually, this issue of district judges issuing national injunctions, and it's going to have to stop or our system's going to stop working.
I think you're right. Representative Mike Collins agrees with you. He said it's ridiculous that a Democratic president can import violent gang members, but a Republican president can't deport them. Eli Crane, representative, says a federal judge trying to force the president of the U.S. to keep foreign terrorists in America. Think about that. Let's impeach the activist judge. Representative Brandon Gill is already drafting it. You see all this happening there, Eric. I mean, this is... I never thought we'd see the day. You know, on one hand, it feels very Reagan-esque to me. I feel like it was in the Reagan era, trust but verify, and we're peace through strength, all those things that we're saying now. You see it, but then you go, wait a minute, this is an American judge. One guy thinks he can stop the whole chain of stopping? What's happening here, Eric?
Yeah, it's insane. And we talk about making America great again, Gene. I think we're making America sane again. We're in the process of doing that. And I get the feeling the Trump administration is going to just dismiss Hopefully they're ultimately dismissed, impeached, as we've been discussing, but just dismiss these insane laws or insane rulings, I should say. It's not going to fly. It's not going to work. President Trump has a job to do. And first and foremost, as commander in chief, is to protect the American people. And these violent drug gangs and cartels, illegals who came here during that 4-year invasion of our southern border under Joe Biden, they were recently designated as terrorist organizations by President Trump. They're terrorists. They're not citizens. They're here illegally. They have to go. This is not brain surgery. It's common sense. So I think we're seeing a return to common sense, and President Trump's talked about that a bunch. But in the meantime, the left, they continue to double down, Gene, whether it's basically standing up for the rights of violent terrorists who are here illegally, or terror supporters like Mahmoud Khalil at Columbia University, or the trans madness in men and women's sports. They continue to double down. They can't even stand for a 13-year-old kid who survived brain cancer at President Trump's speech to Congress 2 weeks ago. So they're doubling down on evil and insanity. But thankfully, again, we're making America sane again. And President Trump is a man on a mission. He won't be deterred by these antics.
I don't think he will. And you know who else is not going to be deterred? Tom Homan. This is a 13-second clip that just wins the day. Watch.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more terrorists do you plan on deporting to El Salvador?
Come on, Pastor Hank. You got to love it. You got to love Tom Homan.
Yeah, you listen, that's boom. That was the best thing he could say. And it's what we need to do as American people is stand with our Constitution, but more than that, America first. And, you know, in the words of Andrew Womack, that judge, he's stupid. You know, anybody who wants to bring those kind of level of violent criminals and you know, act like they're empathetic towards them is ridiculous. And what we have to also do, we're talking about a spiritual component and a natural component here. We have to remember, in Deuteronomy 7, there was a reason in context. Now listen, where God said to Israel, when you go and you begin to possess your land, show no mercy against those that have done evil, the giants that were in the land. And I think when these people have come in with that kind of criminal intent, you don't show that kind of mercy. You get them out. And that's the spiritual component. I mean, Jesus taught us, you cast evil out. You don't tolerate it. You don't sit there and repackage it and call it woke and then push it, you know, in your culture. You have to get this kind of stuff out. And I'm going to tell you, I think we're seeing what righteousness and justice looks like before our eyes. And if we could have our spiritual eyes open, don't forget this, FlashPoint Army. The reason you want to get these people out is because if you let them in some of the level of evil, you're allowing evil principalities and powers to come in. And that's how culture and cities and nations change, because of the influence of evil spirits that come through those who give it a right to have a voice and a manifestation.
All right, let me clear up something, just in case you're wondering if President Trump did something wrong. Caroline Levitt put this out, the press secretary. I'm not going to read the whole tweet, but here she says right there in the middle of the page, federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs. His authority under the Alien Enemies Act and his core Article 2 powers to remove foreign alien terrorists from the U.S. soil and repel a declared invasion. All right, Pastor Che, it seems to me like he's putting America first.
Absolutely, but I want to just emphasize, elections do have consequences. I was before a Obama-appointed federal judge when I sued Governor Newsom, and he just gave Matt Staver, my attorney, 15 minutes. He said, your pastor's going to jail. That was it. Then I went to the Ninth Circuit, and again, Obama-appointed and Clinton-appointed judge. There's in the Ninth Circuit, you have a lottery of 3 judges out of 27, and they again said the letter's good, your pastor's going to jail. But what President Trump did, he elected over 300 federal judges that are conservative and constitutionalists. And that's why elections matter. We can't go to sleep. The next 4 years is absolutely crucial for the midterm and the presidential election, that we get someone that is law and order, who's a constitutionalist, and thank God for that. But we see the impact of 8 years of Obama, 4 years of Biden and the federal judges they put in, they're absolutely woke. And so we need to really pray that the Supreme Court would decide on this, or they are impeached and we get rid of them. And I'm just being honest because of what I went through in 2020.
That's right. You sure did. And you won.
Yeah,
you came out on the other side.
Thank God for the 3 Supreme Court justices, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, that weighed in. And of course, even John Roberts jumped in, and I won 6-3 by the grace of God. And I had a great attorney.
Yeah, amen. You sure did. All right, let's change gears a little bit because this is a little fun thing. Autopen controversy. Let me read you the tweet from President Donald Trump. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. And it goes on to explain because they were done by the Autopen. Now, let me show you this next picture. I saw this, I thought, okay, I want to make sure Jason had this. This is the way, the official wall, Patriots, number 45, President Donald Trump. 46, there is the Autopen, and 47 is President Trump. So when you see those pictures of the presidents, it's not really that far from the truth, Mark Meckler, when we come to the fact that we have Autopens. And if we were paying attention, you remember Speaker Johnson talked about this in an interview where he finally got to sit down with Joe Biden and he told him about something he'd signed. Joe said, I didn't do that. Yes, you did. I can show you. What is this? Is Autopen really a concern?
Yeah, I think it's a big concern. We even have Jake Tapper, one of the biggest apologists for President Biden, writing a quote-unquote tell-all investigation book showing how his dementia was covered up. We have an investigation of Joe Biden for holding classified documents where the DOJ said, really, he's just not mentally competent to be held for trial. And so that speaks to his mental incompetence. I think they're in real trouble here. The question is, how does this get pursued? Is it a DOJ investigation? My preference would be that the president just declares all those pardons null and void, that he prosecutes some of those people. Those people will then raise the pardons as an affirmative defense. And then the DOJ will say, well, those pardons are invalid. And then that's how that gets litigated. I think that's a great way to rise this up through our system of justice.
It's going to be interesting. All right. Okay, Eric, look at this. Oversight Project shows Autopen update. We analyzed Biden's January 19th, 2025 pardons for Biden family members, Anthony Fauci, General Milley, J6 committee, Gerald Lundgren, and they all have the same exact Biden signature. There it is. You know how hard it is for you to sign your name exactly the same way? I mean, look, they're all the same. They're all the same. Yeah. Watch. I mean, look. Come on, Eric.
It's astounding that this man was the president of the United States. He literally did not know what was happening, what he was doing. He wasn't even, could you imagine the president with something so important as presidential pardons? The president himself not reviewing it, looking it over before personally signing it with his own hand. It's unimaginable, but it really happened. And Gene, I have to say, we're talking about this being a spiritual battle. I know this is a more lighthearted story in a sense, but I hope the American people will realize that when Donald Trump dodged that bullet on July 13th in Butler, PA, we all dodged a bullet. This shows you again the reprieve that we got as the American people. We can't squander this incredible opportunity. This Autopen controversy, and it's more than a controversy, it was a national security issue in my view. Yeah. It just brings it home to me even more. Thank God what God pulled us out of. Amen. And the intercessors were praying, because the alternative to what we have now, and it's been a glorious 8 weeks, but the alternative was the Autopen and worse. I just thank God every day.
Yeah, I mean, all right, Pastor Hank, I want you to look at this. This is Caroline Leavitt. This is why you better be careful when you go to the White House press room. Watch.
We're talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out. Okay, Sean.
You're a reporter. You should find out. Okay, Pastor Hank. Now, listen, we want to make sure everybody understands. It's not the use of Autopen that's the wrong thing. It's, did Joe Biden know what he was doing? Did he know? And we know because of other cases that have come before, he didn't know what he was doing. This is where it all falls apart. Go ahead, Pastor Hank.
Well, Joe, at first I love that press secretary. But anyway, Joe Biden, his Autopen was, he thought it was while he drove his car, he was signing something, his Autopen. But here's the real deal. What we have to ask ourselves is, who is signing those things, or who did sign it? And it's amazing because from the start, you got to remember, right after the election of 2020, God called the administration a fake administration. Amazing. Autopen. Oh, fake. Okay, because God is going to bring something out. And I want to read just a short prophecy that is going to show the people. I think the theme on this show is about justice. God said on December 31st, this was at our New Year's service, the Lord began to speak prophetically. He says, watch what happens with my justice, for my justice is coming, and it does not matter who they've appointed. It doesn't matter who they pardon. It does not matter who they even platform their positions, even those that they have seated. It shall be stripped, reversed, and reset, says the Spirit of God, because this is the hour of my justice. And so this is great. We are seeing what justice looks like. Exodus 32, God said, in no way am I going to clear the guilty. We're seeing it before our eyes, and we have to keep praying for the Lord, for his hand to stay involved.
All right, let me show you this before we go to break. Kylie Jane Kramer writes, look at the second half of her tweet here. President Biden was already found mentally incompetent to stand trial as a result of Hur's investigation. It was read into the congressional record on February 14th, 2024, people. 2024, Mark. If this was any other case, a state case, what would happen?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if this was an estate case, if it was a contract, if it was anything, this person can't sign a document that's binding in any way. This has massive consequences, and it goes way beyond pardons. It's every bill passed by Congress that he signed. It's every action, executive action that he took that he signed. There's a question as to the enforceability of all of this. Now, I don't know how deep the Supreme Court will wade into this, but this is actually a serious constitutional crisis.
The Dems are saying a lot of things, and they seem to keep rehearsing what worked before. They tried some things. They were masters of the mainstream media. Well, in fact, we've shown you supercut after supercut of them saying exactly the same thing. They're still trying it. Watch.
The strength that we have is in this moment.
Listen to your constituents. Center them in this moment.
But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment.
I think about what's happening, in this moment.
What's important is that we meet this moment.
So are these current Democrats the ones to meet the moment?
What do you want to see us doing right now in this moment?
And which Democrats are actually going to stand up against Elon Musk and Donald Trump in this moment?
The fight that you all are exhibiting is not just what the base wants, but it's what this moment requires.
Okay, so Pastor Che, I just want to know, what do you think? What do you have to say about in this moment?
Well, in this moment, it's a Kairos time for revival and reformation. It's amazing how the Democrats haven't learned from this past election. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. They say the same things. And when 80% of Americans are for DOGE and what's going on as far as cutting out the fat and reducing the budget, it's about the economy. And so the average person, they're still woke about the transgender issues. And of course, in California, it's even worse there. But here we are seeing incredible reformation taking place, and I feel that we're on the verge, and I said this in my book, on the verge of a third great awakening, which includes revival and reformation.
Absolutely. In fact, let me show you Reince Priebus, what he had to say on ABC this week about President Trump. He owns them. Watch.
Well, the Democrats have had two horrific weeks, and it really just comes down to what Donna said. They've got no leader. They've got no movement. The only thing they've got is Trump derangement syndrome. It's the only thing that brings them together. And the only thing they got out of this week was, well, who's going to primary Chuck Schumer? What are we all about? AOC and Bernie Sanders are the only people in their entire party that can get a crowd of over 20 to show up. So the only thing they are, they're afraid of Trump. Trump owns them. And it was a total slam dunk for the Republican Party.
All right, so let me go to you, Mark. Look at this. You know, the CNN did a poll, and they said, who do you think the leader of the Democratic Party is? Do you want to take a guess at that? Who would top the list?
I mean, they're all so bad, but I think it's AOC.
You're correct. You're correct. You saw it. You saw it ahead of time. AOC, look at this, 10%. Wow, what a trouncing win. Kamala is at 9%. Bernie at 8%. Hakeem at 6, Obama at 4, Jasmine Crockett at 4, which should be embarrassing. Gavin Newsom at 2, Nancy at 2, Lisa Slotkin at 2, Chuck Schumer at 2, and Tim Walz. How is he even on the board at 1%? Mark, you saw the video, you've seen the information. In this moment, what do you think is the most important thing for us to take from this?
Yeah, I mean, for us as conservatives and Republicans, is to back off and let the Dems keep burying themselves. When your opponent is in a hole and they're digging, just step away, maybe throw them an extra shovel or a pickaxe. They're doing a great job of burying themselves. President Trump should keep doing what he's doing. We should encourage him to go further, faster, and harder. This is the moment that Republicans have been waiting for. I can tell you, I've been waiting for this moment my entire adult life to see Republicans exercising the power that they have. I've never seen it before. We just got to keep doing more of the same.
I agree. You're absolutely right. Let me show you what's... I love this guy. This is CNN again. The Dems are polling low. Watch him.
I'm a big fan of the oldies, and when it comes to the feelings that Americans, voters at large, and Democrats have, I can't help but think of Chubby Checker. Why is that? Because the question is, how low can you go? Voters' views of Democrats in Congress, the lowest ever approval ratings on record per Quinnipiac University. Look at this. Approve, 21% among all voters. Look at the disapprove level. Holy Toledo, 68% of all voters disapprove of how Democrats are doing in Congress. Now, you might think that is low, and this is the lowest number on your screen here, down at 21%. But I want to bring you over here to how Democratic voters feel, because this is truly unbelievable. Amongst their own party, how do Democratic representatives, senators, how are they viewed? Get this, the plurality disapprove at 49%. More Democrats disapprove of the job that their party is doing in Congress than approve. Get this, only 40% approve. These are truly horrific numbers. They're in the trash bin of history. That is how low these approval ratings are. When you can't even get plurality approval among your own party, you know you're doing something wrong.
All right, and we saw this, Eric, even with, we don't have time to get it, Chuck Schumer voting the other way. They are crucifying. They have turned on each other, and they're attacking each other. What do you think is the takeaway from all of this?
Yeah, I think they're a party completely, Gene, in the wilderness, and deeper than just a party in the political wilderness, it's an ideology that's been thoroughly discredited and completely repudiated by the American people, certainly on November 5th in President Trump's landslide victory, but time and time again afterwards in the ensuing months. You just saw the polls there, Gene, and that's left-wing CNN. How about this one from yesterday from left-wing NBC that said more Americans, I believe there's a majority now, more Americans feel good about the direction of the country now than at any time since 2004. So for the first time in 21 years, Americans are actually optimistic about the direction the country is going in. And that's a far cry from the last 4 years prior to President Trump, of course. Again, if Democrats keep this up, and I see no reason that they won't, Gene, because their ideology is blind and relentlessly just insane. If they keep it up, they're going to be out of power, God willing, for a long, long time. And I know it's early still, but not so early that we're even talking midterms. Usually the Dems may, or the opposing party may flip, say, the House. It doesn't look like that's going to happen this time around if things keep going the way they're going. No, it doesn't look that way. But we must stay on guard and we must be ready because they'll hit on something. And we need to be ready for that. I want to play this video from the White House. Turns out we just needed a new president.
It has only been 44 days, but the president will have a lot to talk about tonight when he heads up to Capitol Hill to address a joint...
6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America.
Inaugurate a new president and vice president.
From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back. Our spirit is back. Our pride is back. Members of Congress, and to my fellow citizens, America is back. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. Every day my administration is fighting to bring a future that America deserves. We are draining the swamp, and the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. Despite the best efforts of those who would try to censor us, silence us, break us, destroy us, Americans are today a proud, free, sovereign, and independent nation that will always be free. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future because the golden age of America has only just begun. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Amen. God bless America. And as you've seen, we have been going through quite a shift, quite a change in America over the last few months, just few weeks, actually. Cheon, you have a new book out, Blueprints for Transformation, Bringing Revival and Reformations to the Nation. Explain how this applies to where we are right now.
Well, I really believe that we've had tremendous revivals in our American history, like the Jesus People movement, which was historically from 1967 to 1977. 20 million young people gave their hearts to Jesus Christ. But we didn't see reformation. We didn't see transformation. In fact, we saw some of the worst laws passed, like Roe v. Wade in '73. Of course, same-sex marriage became legal in 2015. What I believe we're entering into, and what I share in this book, is that we're going to see revival and reformation, and I believe we're entering into a third Great Awakening. I know that's a mouthful because we've only had two other Great Awakenings. The first Great Awakening of 1738, beginning in Great Britain, and then, of course, in the United States, Second Great Awakening, 1801. But both, you see the characteristics of a Great Awakening. The harvest does come in. And of course, Whitefield preached to around 80% of America on horseback. He went 12 round trips from Georgia to Maine, and majority of those people got saved. So the harvest came in, but it prepared us for our independence and the transformation of America, the birth of America in 1776. And we see that, of course, in Great Britain with the Great Awakening of 1738. It transformed England. They abolished slavery, the slave trade in 1807, and then by 1833, they declared Emancipation Proclamation to all the British Commonwealth nations. So I share how prophetically I felt like the Lord was leading us, and the first sign he gave me that we're entering into revival and reformation was Roe v. Wade being overturned on June 24th, 2022. And then he spoke to me that Trump was going to win. And I wrote it in my book, and this came out. Of course, the election was, this book was written in October. The election was in November. And what I shared with my sense, not because I'm a prophet, I'm not a prophet. I feel I function as an apostle, as an evangelist. But the Bible says, my sheep hear my voice. And those who are watching, I want to just encourage you. John 10:27, God is speaking to all of us. And he is saying that it's time for the golden age. My only appeal, and what I write about in my book, is that I really believe that if we're coming into this revival reformation, then California will be saved. I've been in California for 40 years. And it's amazing the shift that's happening even in California. 41% of those who voted in California voted for Trump, which is amazing because only 25% of Californians are registered Republicans. And so you got a lot of Democrats that voted. And so I feel the best is yet ahead, but I share how we are to prepare for that, how we need to be transformed ourselves, how we need to walk in humility, how we need to practice righteousness and justice in our world, in our sphere. And I talk about having a biblical worldview and that we're coming into also a tremendous harvest, a billion-soul harvest, and it's not going to be a conventional evangelism. I have a whole chapter on power evangelism. It's going to be through signs and wonders and the supernatural, so God will get all the glory, so that people's faith will not rest on man, but in God's power and in Jesus. So anyway, I'm excited about this book. I feel it's perfect timing for where we're at right now.
Absolute blueprints for transformation, bringing revival and reformation to the nations. You can scan that QR code if you're quick with it. Forward by Lou Engle and Dutch Sheets, a couple of FlashPoint guys. Get this. I think you'll be very encouraged. You can go to cheon.org as well. It's out now. Get your copy.